babes, I will never forget the moment where I decided that I didn't want retirement to be a dream. I wanted it to become reality. I wanted work to be optional. I did not want to go work around people that did not love or care for me, or I didn't care for at all. I didn't want to be in environments where I was shrinked versus encouraged to grow, to have more life. I did not want to be in a position where I was enslaved or I was entrapped to things that did not serve me and my higher power, which is God. See, I'll never forget the day that I decided to retire early, and to live life on my terms. And that's what I want to talk about today. See, number one, there were three things that I knew like had to happen in order to retire. And you already know one of them involved money. And if you're trying to figure it out, how to get out of the situation, money, you do have to pray to God. I feel you do have to have your higher power, have God in your life. You have to pray it through. But God has us here on earth. So if God has us here, then God knows that we need what? Money. So because of that, I had to put myself in position where I was able to have more money. If it would have stayed a dream in my heart if I didn't have the money to save, so I could start saving, so I could start investing, so I could start paying off debt. So how did I figure out the money? How did I do the math? Number one, I had to have a budget. I know that is nasty terminology for some of you out there. You don't want a budget. It is so restricting. I know, why. But look, a budget is necessary. I have worked for large corporations, and I have not in my career, maybe you have, I haven't found one that did not budget, that did not put the estimates together. Why? Because that tells them where they're going, and it tells them where they are at. They budget with the largest corporations. They put together budgets every single year. And this is their blueprint for success. So I knew if corporations were doing it, then it had to be great for who? Me and my personal situation. So my budget, what I did was I just took my income minus expenses. Don't let anyone sell you on buying a budget. A budget is simple. You can do it on paper, pen, paper. It is just income minus expenses. And if there's anything left over, that tells you you are doing great. Well, if there's not a lot, then you maybe need to do a little bit more, get some more income, or decrease your expenses a little. But if you're at a negative, then it's telling you that's red flag. And that means you need to probably increase your income, decrease your expenses. You probably need to do both. But a budget is your blueprint. It is your navigation system for financial success. So one of the things that helped me, put me in position to be before you, to be retired, is I had to not only have a budget, but I had to adhere to that budget. That budget is what helped me to pay off all of my debt. Because see, once I was in a position where I had extra money, I was throwing it to what? Debt. I was throwing it to the mortgage. Why? Because I needed to own my home. I no longer needed the bank to own it. See, on their books, it was an asset. On my books, my mortgage was a liability. It never became an asset. See, if you're confused that you have an asset, you kind of do, but you kind of don't. It doesn't become an asset until you own it. Even if you're a person out there and says, I have rental property and I have assets. Yeah, you do. But guess what? If you have a loan out there, then it's an asset on the bank's book, not yours. It's a liability. Why? Because you owe the bank. And you're banking on your tenants paying what? You rent so that you can pay the bank. There's a lot of liability in that situation. So what we would call in corporate America, we call that high risk. But I'm talking to the person that says, no, I want to truly have it as an asset on my books. I want all the equity. Why? Because you're putting in all the sweat equity into it. You're going to work a job. Why should you not own that house? So I had to make sure I owned it. I could not go into retirement with a mortgage. Why? Because what I found from research is one of the biggest expenses next to insurance for retirees was what? Living. And I didn't want that living expenses to be that high. So I had to pay off the mortgage. So what helped me to do it? I don't want to stay here too long. I've already stayed here long enough. Was just the budget. And if you don't have one, you got to create one ASAP. That gets you there. Number two, I had to be willing to do things a lot different. I had to be willing to go in a job and think different than most people. Most people were just thinking about how they could get through this week so they can get a paycheck and come back on Monday. They weren't thinking long term. So I couldn't talk to any of them about my future and where I was going. I had to put my head down and I had to go to work. I had to work for who? Not just for the company. I was working for myself. Every dollar was freedom for me and my family. So I had to be willing to do something different. I had to be willing to say, you know what? I may want this, but what do I want more? Freedom or something luxury? No, I want both. And in order to have that, I had to first make sure I was in position. So I had to change my environment. I had to change my mindset. I had to change what I was doing. I had to do the inner work. You cannot run from it. Inner work is a lifelong commitment. I had to commit to getting better. I had to commit at making sure that all of those things, those bad things about money that was incorporated in me, all those negative things, I had to overcome that so that I could live a positive, productive, powerful retirement life. Now, I know this, for some of you, there's, different ways of getting there, but I'm just sharing my story. And my story was that I adhered to a budget. I got out of debt. I saved what I needed to save so that I can invest for my future. How does life look now for me? Now, I'm totally, as I said, totally debt-free. It's a beautiful feeling. And I pray, as we are in a holiday season, I pray. I keep hearing about these record sales. I don't know if it's true or not, but that makes me cringe because I believe there's a record. That means there's a record number of people that are getting into debt. But I'm just telling you, it feels great. It is so freeing to know that if I need money, I can borrow from myself. I don't have to borrow from a bank anymore. Why? Because they're just going to charge me interest. And why would I do that? I'm not supposed to be enslaved. My God says I'm not supposed to be enslaved to anything or anyone. And I shouldn't do that. I feel like I can do the things that I want to do. I like being on camera and speaking to you guys and sharing the information. But guess what? I'm not enslaved to YouTube. This is just something I want to do. It's great if it turns into something else. But guess what? I'm not going to be enslaved to it. Not when God has freed me. That's what it does. And last thing I'm going to say is stay focused. I have to stay focused because there's a lot of stuff in my heart that I know I want to do. But when you try to juggle too many things, you will get nothing done. There was a moment in my life where I couldn't get anything done. That was because I was juggling too many things. I know you've heard the story about, I'll tell you that story later. I'll tell you later. For the sake of this video, I won't go into it. But just know that if you are juggling too many things, you have to let it go. You have to focus on what's important. What gets you to the finish line? If that's retirement like me, let's go make it happen. So I thank you for being here. I thank you for your time. Until next time, I'll still away.